This is The Wrench in the Machine, written by Bonsard Bokel and edited by Gene Wilkins. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe and press that bell button. If you want to support the series, you can either do so on Subscribestar or Patreon. And if you want to read along, we now have a store page on associationofishtar.com, where you can get bonus material you will not get anywhere else. File C-33. The capture of a live specimen of C-33 or C-33-A is currently a top priority for Associates. The chair has assigned a special committee called the Resurrection Men to identify possible C-33 activity and retrieve its victims to withhold knowledge of C-33-A from the public. If the Associate suspects they have come in contact with C-33-A, they must inform the committee at once and await further instructions. Description: C-33 looks like a brass-colored snake about 7 centimeters in length with a drill for a head. Who manufactured C-33 and the material composition of which the carapace was made is currently unknown. Its head is a relatively powerful detachable surgical drill with which to burrow its way into its victim. Initially, it will attempt to drill its way into the base of the skull while the victim is sleeping to create an instance of C-33-A. Under duress, it will burrow its way anywhere into the body to infiltrate and kill its victim by seeking out vital organs. Whether it does so intentionally or is a side effect of C-33's attempt to avoid capture is unclear. After C-33 has drilled its way into the victim's skull, it creates an instance of C-33-A. After C-33 has attached itself, preferably where the spine meets the skull, it detaches its tail. C-33-A then disposes of the tail and any other evidence of the infection taking place. C-33 only infects adult humans, male and female. Various instances of C-33-A are known to exist. No reliable method of identifying C-33-A has been developed as yet. Known examples of C-33-A all involve members of the industrial elite. After the supposed infection occurred, the people closest to C-33-A started to notice a change in character. At first, C-33-A appears to focus on a single goal. However, C-33-A also acts less rational than before the infection, turning from juvenile to angry as soon as somebody refuses to follow certain orders. In some cases, C-33-A becomes violent when their requests are not acted upon. These outbursts of anger and violence, usually work-related, become worse as time progresses. See Addendum B and C. Encounters. It is impossible to know how many C-33 have entered Atlas or how many C-33-A instances are active. Areas infested by C-33 are extremely dangerous to unarmed personnel as C-33 waits in ambush, only striking when detected or when an isolated victim has lowered its guard. When entering an area that is suspected to contain C-33, the use of fully enclosed reinforced suits is strongly advised. Its brass interlocking carapace makes it hard to smash or crush with blunt objects. Its flexible body makes it hard to contain, as the construct has an uncanny ability to find crevices and tears to hide in. It also displays tactical insight, and despite its slithering movements, it can move quickly to find a place to hide when it's caught in the act. During attempts to corner examples of C-33 by cutting off its escape route, C-33 immediately changes its path and found another way around to escape the scene. If C-33 can't find an escape route, it will use its drill to force its way through material like wood, cement, flesh, and even material as strong as human bone. Report C-33-1. Summary. In 1868, a specimen of C-33 got captured by a shepherd near the village of Redacted. When he caught an example of C-33 in his cabin, he threw an unshaven sheepskin on it. As a result, C-33 intertwined its drill in the fur and was unable to dislodge itself. The shepherd then handed the entire sheepskin over, with the C-33 trapped inside, to the local authorities. Unfortunately, C-33's internals were destroyed. Whether this was intentional or due to the drill overheating is unknown. The remains within the carapace contained metals like copper, iron, and molten resin designated P redacted. Regardless, this was the most complete specimen of C-33 the Association has managed to obtain. Further investigation by Dr. Bourbon indicates that the carapace and internal parts have disintegrated, indicating traveler's disease and assuring this object was not of this world. Report C-33-2 Summary. This is a case that might involve specimens of C-33-A. In 1863, a workshop owner, Mr. Jeffrey Stalton, referred to as C-33-2 from the town of Redacted, threatened to push his brother-in-law, Mr. Redacted, who worked for this company for many years, into a furnace after he refused to fulfill an assignment that he considered detrimental to the company. The order in question was the fabrication of 700 miniaturized cogs with a peculiar shape. Although not impossible, it required a substantial investment in a product the brother-in-law deemed not profitable. Employees remarked that both men had always been on good terms and the owner's actions were out of character. It was when authorities confronted C-33-2 about the assault, the subject went toward the nearest steam hammer and laid his upper body beneath it. He resisted when those present tried to pull him away. C-33-2 was crushed from the waist up. One of our associates was informed that, during autopsy, metal objects were recovered within the remains of the skull and are now in our possession. Report C-33-3. In 1869, the Association caught wind of a possible incident involving C-33-3. Name of the infected, Redacted. She was the daughter of Redacted, an influential industrialist who made his fortune manufacturing standardized parts for machines such as spinning jennies. Associates managed to interview some members of the household. Report C-33-3 Transcript.
How would you describe your daughter?
Social. She enjoyed social events. Everybody liked her and she was very outgoing. Opinionated. Unfortunately, she didn't have the same passion for her responsibilities. I think she joined those suffragettes, but I'm not sure. She enjoyed living on the wild side, so to speak. I always feared she would give her mother a heart attack. Well, she nearly did me, and I was just...
When did her behavior change?
Must have been a Tuesday. Oh, I don't know. I stopped paying attention to her by that point. We considered her something of a lost cause, I must admit. I kinda got used to her asking for things, I suppose. We gave her everything, gave her every opportunity, and still... It wasn't until she gave one of her servants a mouthful when she informed her the Sunday dinner was ready. Despite everything, she never missed the Sunday dinner. Even if we wouldn't say a word to each other, well, that changed.
Changed how?
Well, all of a sudden she cared about my work. Even mentioned how I should run the company. At first I thought she was taunting me, but then she started to, well, make sense. Spoke like a prodigy even. I tried to raise my son to follow me in my footsteps for many years. God knows he tried. I'm proud of my son. But even now, I don't know if I can entrust the company to him. And then she sat there across the table, telling me to pay close attention to the colonial situation, as the African climate is very hostile to Western men.
Did she get involved with the company?
She wanted to. At first, I thought she was just boasting, repeating what one of her many friends had said. But then she kept insisting. And then she came home with a new, let's call him a friend, a young army captain involved in a special committee for health and safety. He and I started talking business, and before I knew it, I was up to my ears in a secret government program. All according to our plan, I suspect.
Plan to achieve what?
Who knows? Build a non-sentient army to conquer Africa. I just knew there was something wrong, but anyway, I kept her in the dark the best I could. We barely managed. She even broke into my office at the factory. When she was caught, I placed her under house arrest. Another underestimation on my part.
Are you aware of a company called Warwick and Marsh?
Yes. Why, yes. They have several arms factories on the Isles and the continent. We suspected she wanted to sell the plants to them. The Crown had intercepted a letter by her to them, and then she bought a boarding pass to the continent. I guess I can't be surprised. They are ordinary arms traders who tend to be flexible.
Well, I suppose that brings us to the night of your daughter's death. Are there any details that stand out from that evening, apart from its conclusion?
Very well. We gave her house arrest after we found her prowling around in my office. What else could I have done? Turn her in to the police. I guess we should have.
I'm sure many would have done the same.
Yes, well, she escaped. Forced the lock. One of her many latent talents, I suppose. Then again, I barely paid her any attention, but she knew she would find me in my office. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't be idle, so there she was, my own daughter about to knife me with a letter opener.
Demanding I divulge the code to the safe containing the information on the project.
Regardless of her relationship, I had always given her what she desired.
Not sure why, but not this time. Not for a moment I believed that thing was my daughter.
No doubt in my mind.
When I heard her
spitting that godless language from between her lips, I knew she had been possessed.
Are you well?
Obviously, I'm not. Something turned my daughter into a monster. No. Something took her, wore her body like a skin suit. An automaton.
Sir, we can...
A servant came in, bless his heart, and managed to take advantage of the situation and threw her off of me. We struggled, managed to disarm her, and then we let her go again. That was my fault.
Why? What happened?
She ran off, straight for the lounge, locked herself in, then gave the shot, and disposed of her body with my father's hunting rifle. That is how my father used to make a living for his family. Of all the guns, he did it to spite us. I'm sure. End of recording. According to the servant involved in this struggle, it was not the father, but it was he who let her escape from the office, admitting he had reservations about hurting a woman. We have no explanation for this contradiction. After the struggle, while C-33-3 locked itself up, her father ordered an evacuation of the manor, but before any action could be taken there was a single shot emanating from the room. With help from the local authorities, we forced the entrance to the room where C-33-3 was last seen. C-33-3 had taken her own life with an 8-gauge hunting rifle. In this case, just like in the case of C-33-2, metallic objects were recovered from the remains of the skull. An acquaintance of the aforementioned army captain informed one of our associates of the event. Unfortunately, the whereabouts and status of the metallic objects are currently unknown. The constable claims this happened due to a clerical error. Report C-33-5. Prelude to the engagement. An instance of a C-33 construct happened to be in a manor near the city of Amstan Junction. A maid was removing cobwebs from the ceiling when the master of the house was away, combining a business trip with a family vacation. When she removed another cobweb, a C-33 appeared from underneath the web and crawled across the wall. Terrified, she called other staff members for help, who gave chase to the construct. They cornered it in the kitchen, where C-33 attempted to drill its way out through a copper panel. After stomping it, the staff managed to trap C-33 beneath a wooden tub. One of the servants sat on the bottom of the tub to prevent it from being lifted. Unfortunately for the servant, C-33 decided to drill its way through the bottom. When C-33's tail protruded from his body, all those present fled the matter immediately, and the authorities were informed. Local constables, accompanied by members of the local militia, entered the manor. They were unsuccessful, however, suffering heavy casualties, leaving one military member dead, 3 wounded, and one of the constables died of organ failure in the hospital. See the interview section for more information. This was when a local acquaintance informed the association and 3 associates volunteered. Capture. After our society was informed, 3 associates were dispatched to deal with the construct. Staff and militia members present had been interrogated. See interview A and B. Associates brought with them sheepskins, as this was a tried method, and large quantities of steel wool, the kind that is used for pest control. Associate 15 speculated that its brittle nature might slow down C-33's drill long enough without overheating. C-33's container needs to be wrapped in sheepskin regardless. Interview A. Militiaman. In the aftermath of the capture of C-33, witnesses of the first attempt to neutralize C-33 were interviewed to learn more about its behavior. Corporal, redacted, was there to lead his platoon. Please sit down and thank you for your time. Could you please state your name and function for the record? My name is redacted, Corporal. I have been with the redacted militia for about 5 years. I'm sorry about what happened to your men, Corporal. Could you tell me about your encounter with C-33? C-33 is the kind of name for that thing, sir. I fought strange animals before, but nothing like that. We entered the manor and headed for the kitchen. The body of Mr. Yulee was still there. We found a trail of blood it left behind. The thing had crawled up against the counter into one of the cupboards. There we discovered it drilled its way into the next room. It's a sneaky bastard like that. We finally cornered it. We had a metal bucket with a lid with us to contain it. We tried shooting it. We tried smashing it with a hammer. It was the most frustrating thing I've ever seen. Whatever that thing was made of, it was so slippery that bullets and hammer strikes just seemed to push it aside. Then Private, redacted, tried to grab it while wearing welding gloves. He was new, so I guess he wanted to prove himself. That turned out to be a mistake. Ever seen a man cutting himself? I heard stories of drug fiends cutting themselves because they hallucinate insects crawling under their skin, but this, I could see it crawling underneath his skin, destroying what was ever underneath, and Have you ever heard one of those automated meat grinders at work? It sounded just like that. Others tried to help him, and I just stood there. It got them too, just drilled its way through their limbs and escaped. Constable, redacted, nearly stopped him with a bucket, but failed. The thing made its way straight through his oven and out through the back. That is when I aborted the operation. We carried away the bodies and evacuated the site. End of interview. You have been listening to a chapter of The Wrench in the Machine by Bonsard Bokel. If you enjoy these narrations and want us to improve our content, please consider buying our publications or support us through Subscribestar or PayPal, like these generous patrons. Apart from being mentioned in the credits, There are also other various reward tiers that include access to original art, coloring books, and digital publications of her published works. All the links can be found below this video.